Good morning and welcome to this week's podcast episode. Today we have Claire Cuvyer joining us. Now, Claire is a career and mindset coach and she focuses on helping people overcome labels and release the limitations so that they feel fully confident in their abilities and they can actually tap into their true potential. More recently, Claire has turned her focus to mentoring recent graduates to help support their transition into working life. With a background in marketing and communication, Claire very much recognises and supports the development of personal brand during a student's time at university as a key component of their success post-graduation. Not surprisingly, she also has a blog called White Blank Pages, which gives career-focused advice and guidance. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. It's lovely having you
A
on
lovely
board.
Introduction.
So let's start with the work that you do in supporting students to develop and reach their career goals. Obviously, for most students, the career is the end reason for why they're studying. And from your experience in career transition, how can universities or higher education providers in general improve the employability of their students?
Yeah, I find that with a lot of the clients that I work with when transitioning from university to career or to finding their job or moving into that space of actually job hunting and looking for work, they get the unknown is really scary. So they've been at university and they've been studying, they know what's happening, they know what's coming up, and then all of a sudden they're on their own and they've got this. They actually have to make a job out of this. So there's a lot of pressure and it's really quite daunting. So from a real practical sense and a practical level in regards to planning and transitioning and understanding which direction you want to go in, it's I feel about educating students on the basic application process. So it's the STAR method, it's the interview process, it's how to present and show up in an interview, how to actually ring a employer and talk to them about what expectations are from the role, what are they looking for in a candidate. I find that I'm often actually giving some of my clients blurbs on what to say because they really have not had any experience in that and they don't know how to approach it. They don't know what the first step is. So it's that practical skills. And even though a lot of universities have this stuff available for them, but when you're studying, I feel that students don't see this as a priority for them. They're concentrating on their studies and they're concentrating on the next step and what they need to do to be able to graduate. And then all of a sudden it's wow, now I need to use this to find a job. It's also looking at professional development opportunities as well. So it's looking at what transferable skills they have. And like you mentioned before, I do a lot around personal branding and positioning yourself as an expert in your field. So it's understanding what your strengths are. A lot of the clients that I work with just have not even thought about that. And I ask them sort of, what's your top 5 strengths? And they're like, oh, I don't really know. They say, draw blank. So it's getting them to really understand what are you actually good at and how can you apply that to positioning yourself as an expert. So I think as an all-round, it's a lot of the practical skills that they need to be able to position themselves and to apply for a role.
And I think, you touched on that real thing of it's not a priority. And I think it's almost like I just need to get through this first and then magically I'll get the job at the end of it. And I know when I did my undergraduate degree, and a lot of my friends did HR, because they enjoyed it. It was the kind of subjects, and it was subject focused. So it wasn't really looking at what the job was going to be at the end, but I enjoy doing the HR subjects, or I enjoy doing the marketing subjects, so that's what I'll do. And I don't think any of them ever worked in that field.
So it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I'm just here to do university, and then when I finish university, a job will pop up and I'll magically be there. So yeah, that sort of mindset and getting it in the students earlier, that they, everything that we're doing in that university journey needs to lead to that. And I think, we have the graduate attributes that we talk about and the employability of students. And maybe, I don't know, do you think if we brought more of that language into the student conversations where it's about preparing you for your career, would
Yeah,
is that something that would help?
absolutely. And I think it's about giving the students examples, because they really relate to people like them. So I feel that if you bring some recent graduates into universities and get them to talk about their experience and how they found finding a job and what helped them, would really resonate with the current students. Because I find you have academics talking to them, and you have professional staff talking to them, but it just doesn't resonate because it's not in their radar. Whereas if you bring somebody who's 1 or 2 years out and they're talking about their experience and how they graduated, I think that would really, their ears will prick up and they go, oh, okay, actually this is actually going to lead to a career that I need to apply for and get a job. And I also find that students who are in degrees that have got a clear pathway don't, like education or nursing or midwifery degrees, they they're focused on what they're doing, and they feel that they're on a clear path, so they're going to get a job, but they still need to apply, and they still need to present themselves. They still need to show up as an interview, and they need to use their practical skills in a way that's going to get them the job. So that their practicals and their placements, it's about understanding what language they need to use to be able to present that for them as an expert, and how important networking is in those instances, and building relationships in those instances is as well. So it's across the entire scope of degrees as well. So I think that can be missed, because a lot of students think, well, I'm going to be a teacher, so that's going to be my career path. I don't need to worry about job, goal setting, or getting a career plan together or anything like that, because they've got that in their mindset.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really important point there in terms of having the alumni coming in and sharing their journey, because quite often when we do that, we're bringing in people who are significantly advanced in their careers, and we're like, this is a person who's succeeded, and here they've done this and done. And it's too far away. When we're talking mentors and, that related journey, we need to have that 1 or 2 steps out where they can still remember and they can still talk about the pain of the first job interview. And
yes, yeah,
and
absolutely. I completely agree.
And I know some universities now are bringing in the alumni mentor programs where they're talking about, that transition out. Are you familiar with a lot of those? And what are your thoughts?
I'm not familiar with a lot of those, no. I'm probably more so familiar with them in certain programs in schools, but not across, a whole range. I find in my experience that they are generally in the business marketing schools or programs, which completely makes sense, and it's definitely useful and valuable. But I believe across all of the degrees, it would be very valuable, and like you said, having those people 1 or 2 years out to help support and guide them.
So what are some of the other challenges you think higher education providers face in creating that employment focused student experience overall?
I think that as in higher education institutions, there's a lot of conflicting needs for the students, and pressing needs for the students as well. It can get quite overwhelming for both, for the students as well as what they're going to take in, and for the academics in the higher education. And it can get quite frustrating when students don't engage as well. So it's easier to lose focus. But I think it's important to bring the students into the conversation, number one, and use students as partners. I think that would be really valuable in how we can really talk to the students and talk their language and get them engaged, instead of talking at them and expecting them to soak in all this information and to retain all this information. And also to in regards to the conflicting and the pressing needs of students, I think that there's a lot of talk and scope around mental health, which is extremely important, but it's about encompassing career planning and development within that, because not a lot, but some issues come from that as well. So the stress and anxiety of employment and getting jobs can then lead to mental health issues. So it's about the whole compass and having it as a real holistic approach into what students need. But I'm a strong believer in students as partners and bringing them into the conversation. I think that would really help support higher education providers in understanding what is really needed for students.
And you've just, given a really nice dovetail into my next question, which is
Yeah.
how much would you see student mindset as either helping or hindering their success at university? And what are some of the things that we can do or ideas we can explore to change that, particularly in terms of that goal setting, that motivation, and, using that as a way to provide support?
Yeah, sure. Well, number one, I think mindset is plays a massive part in the student education. It is, half of it, even more than that. And it's like I said earlier, I feel that practical is a really important part of it, but also the personal development as well is a really strong part in helping students succeed at university. And I feel that the growth mindset concept by Carol Drake can really be adapted into the teachers' learning, and how students can adapt information and learn from their failures and successes and challenges and how they approach that. I really believe that would really help understanding how students really help in the success of a student's learning capacity at university. And when students receive feedback, it to be really valuable and it to be critical, but them to view it in a way that's going to help them learn and develop. So instead of getting a grade back as they got 50% on their exam, and instantly they'll go to the negative side of that and I got 50% wrong, I can't do this, I don't know this is not sinking in for me, as opposed to seeing it from, I got 50% right, so I've got 50% to learn. I learnt that part, so there's no reason why I can't learn the rest or can't build on the rest or can't develop the rest. And I really think that would help in the success of university and people studying, so that they can eliminate that I can't do it, or that imposter syndrome, or that, why am I here, or this is not working for me, university's life's not for me. If you really look at learning in the growth mindset theory, I think that would really help. I know for me, when I was studying, I have dyslexic, so I didn't know about the growth mindset then. So my experience of learning had a lot of that internal conversation about, should I even be here? Is this a place for me? Is higher education a spot for somebody that has got dyslexic? When I was completely fine, and from when I started university to when I finished university, I was going from scraping in to actually really succeeding, and that's just the growth mindset in play there. Me really understanding that I can do this, and this is where I'm supposed to be, and I've worked really hard to get here, so let's make it work. So does that answer your question in a roundabout way?
It does. I love that. And I love Carol's work, talking about mindset. And we sort of, because it's hard to measure, and it's hard to, we can't just teach it. We actually have to give opportunities for it to grow and to share the information, but to provide or design the experience so that they're actually taking that on board. And then before they know it, they're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense now. And I can see what that is. And I can see that's different from how I used to think. And self-talk's such a big thing. I know when I was, when I did my undergraduate, and I was convinced I was going to fail statistics, and it was like, why am I doing this? And I used to always love maths, but statistics, it's like, statistics, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
and I actually ended up getting a B in it, but I was like ready to drop out, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm too dumb, I can't do this. And
Yeah.
it was really only when I went and spoke to my lecturer, and they said, why would you want to drop out? You're actually doing really well. It's like, well, how would I know that? I've got no idea. I've got, I haven't had any results. I don't feel like I am, and I'm not feeling like I'm getting any feedback or anything that I can measure to say that I'm actually on the right track.
Yeah.
And, it was multiple choice exam. So if in doubt, choose C. That was my mantra.
Yeah.
Love it. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was always good. It's just such a critical thing. And like what you were saying before, having that mindset in place when you're studying, then transitioning that to when you're leaving your studies, how is that going to play out in that actual application and that process there?
Yeah, absolutely. And just on internal dialogue, I hear a lot of my clients say, I just don't do well in interviews. And that would be the most common comment that I get. And it's that not yet. You might have had one bad experience. That's showing you that, I didn't do well in that interview. It doesn't mean that moving forward you're not going to do well. And this is why we're here. This is how you can build your confidence. This is how you can level up and really position yourself for an expert, that you go into that interview feeling confident and you leave feeling that you put your best foot forward. So it's changing that, instead of like, I just don't do well in interviews. Interviews are not my thing. That's not the case 100% of the time.
Yeah, I so used to say that. I'm just not good at exams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Well, that's all the questions that I have, Claire. Is there anything that you'd like to share about the kind of work that you're doing, or any other messages or anything that you'd like to share before we go?
I think that firstly, it's so nice that you're putting voice to this work. And I feel that the student experience within the university sector and environment is so important, as well as the education and what you get out of it. And I feel that if you can really put a career focus on the way that you position yourself and the way that you think and your mindset throughout the university experience, I think that's going to really put you in a really good headspace and position when you graduate. So thank you for doing that work. I also have got available an application toolkit as well. So that's purely giving you tips and advice on how to apply for roles. Just the simple, using the STAR method. It's got, like I said before, it's got blurbs in there on how you can start conversations with employers, also interview questions that you can ask, and how to prepare for an interview. So it's just got a real good mix of tools that you can use in the application process. So you can find that on your website.
We'll put a link in the podcast.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, excellent. Yeah, great. I think that's all from me, though.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. And, we quite often forget that the whole purpose is about that sort of the career part at the end of it. So it's been good to sort of bring that perspective back in. It's not just about getting good grades, and it's not just about how we feel and how well we're learning, but that we're actually getting something tangible that we can take forward at the end. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. No problems at all. Thank you for